All right, welcome to the Chason Laing podcast. Interesting topics, very interesting people, featuring me, your host, Chason Laing, and today we have an awesome guest. She's an actress based out of Florida, and she does a bunch of other stuff that we're going to definitely get in there and talk about here. And so my special guest today is JEANNIE GARCIA. Hello, how are you?
How are you?
Very good. It helps when I unmute you when we start the show. That's always a good idea.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. JEANNIE, thanks for doing this. Man, I keep up with you on Facebook, and you were always doing like stuff. Like you have your fingers in so many things. But one of the first things I wanted to talk about is just meeting you for the first time. Because the first time I met you, I believe it was at ICFF Festival there in Florida or in Orlando. And I met you. And one of the things that I noticed about you right off the bat was that there's a lot of people there that have very large heads. Have you noticed this? Like very big, like they walk in the room and it's like, man, they think they're super special. And sometimes that's definitely not warranted.
Yeah.
But you were the opposite. Like it was immediately, my wife and I were both attracted to you because you were just super nice, super caring about like everybody around you. You did not have a major ego. Like you were one of the most kind, like humbling, nice people at the conference. And like we immediately we like that person. And so right off the bat, that was a great way to introduce ourselves to you.
Well, I kind of felt that way about you guys, which is why, your wife and I hit it off. You're quieter. So
which is funny because that is absolutely not true. I'm way more the talker and she is.
I guess so.
But she liked you. So like that just, when she likes somebody, she's going to talk to them. So that turned out pretty good.
It's kind of like my Pomeranian that doesn't like too many people. But then when she picks that person, it's like, oh, just kidding. Anyway.
Well, let's jump in there. I discovered something about you that I did not know here really recently, and is that you do singing and music. Like you have actually like recordings online where I found them and listened, and I was like, oh my gosh, I didn't even know you did that kind of stuff.
Well, okay, so I did do it, and so here's to boredom, which we don't experience much of these days. But I started writing my first song on the back of a motorcycle. I guess I was just so bored because I can't sit in the back of a motorcycle. My husband got a motorcycle, and then after one ride, I was just like, I want my own because this is boring. So
was your hair blowing behind you while you had this idea?
I don't know. I'm like, I want the wheel. But and I'm not that controlling. I'm not. He wears the pants, I'm just saying. But anyway, so I just kept on repeating the verse so that I won't forget it. And I got home and I wrote it down. And then after that, it was just like, if I had long drives, I would just write the songs. And honestly, I never did anything with the songs. They were just on a notebook and I had the melody in my head. And when God called me back to the industry after I completely left it, it was by way of this one movie called Open My Eyes that's on PureFlix. And something made me tell the director, hey, if you need any music, I got some songs that I wrote. I would never say that, but I happened to say it. And he said, well, send it, send it over. And the music director told me just to sing it onto the phone. And I did. He goes, I like her stuff. And so he had me write the theme song. And then through the filming, there was a scene I had to just sing something, like improvise, just like while I was practicing guitar, which I don't play, but I did in the movie. And he liked the song that I was humming. So he's like, well, and I said, well, that's my song. And he said, well, we're going to produce it for you. And then they produced 2 other songs that I wrote. And so I had 3 songs in that movie that I wrote and I performed. And it was such an honor to have that come to life,
Yeah. That's like an amazing scenario when you're like, hey, by the way, I can do this. And they're like, yes, please bring it on. And so you ended up with 3.
Yeah, that was pretty cool. One of them, American Idol a long time ago had a contest for songs. And I had this song written out and I just never really submitted it. And so that's the song that we ended up using. But because the tone of the scene was very happy, I liked the words and I completely changed the melody to be a very uplifting, happy song. And that's really cool to be able to do that kind of stuff. I do things more on like the necessity of it, So yeah. It's kind of like when he asked me to write the theme song called Open My Eyes, it's like I'm not going to just start working it on my own. I want God involved, you know? And so I just waited on God to inspire me. And sure enough, do you want to hear all this stuff?
Yeah. This is interesting.
Okay. So I was on set and I was wondering like, okay, I hope I get inspired some, you know, and then there's one person was sitting next to me and who had cuts on their arm. I'm saying they, not because of the pronoun thing, but because I don't want to reveal like, and I something about it just kind of jumped out to me, and it revealed to me the beauty of scars and how at some point there was so much pain, but how God heals. And then that just brought to life the song. And
so do you write the lyrics, obviously, and you sing. Do you do any of the other musical instruments, or how does that work?
I don't. I don't know. I don't have that gift yet of being able to produce, or even I do write the lyrics and the melody, but production is very important when the producers create a melody line, like I don't even know what it's called, like this, they beyond the melody of the actual words, they create different, you know, music to it. I don't do that. And I wish I did, but I don't.
So now, is this the same stuff that I found online? Because you had like an EP or something online. It was like 6-7 songs that I found. Was that the same stuff?
Well, 3 of those are the ones that were used in the film. And then after that, I worked with the same music director to produce the other 3 songs. And I have more, but you know, it costs money to do that kind of stuff. And I don't know. It's tough, but you know,
yes, it is. Yeah,
you're gifted enough to where you can make things happen, you know.
Well, sometimes that's hit and miss. Like it, you know, I can make some things happen, and then other things, man, like doesn't really quite work that way. But that's all good. But I am a fan of like anything that has to do with musical composition, because I'm you know, I play guitar and I make music, and so anybody that I've discovered is doing that as well. I'm always fascinated to see like, how did you do this? What are you doing? How did you get involved with this whole thing? And that's kind of a crazy little you know, story from jumping from back of a motorcycle to I have 3 songs that I sing in a movie. That's pretty crazy.
Yeah, it's a total God thing. I mean, it's like I you know, I've said this before, but it's like I walked away from the industry because it was before I knew Jesus and had a relationship with God, and I read the Bible, and then I'm like, when I read the Bible, it just dismantled everything that I stood on. It was like, it was all about me. It was all about lust, because I was more of a model than I was an actress.
Okay.
And I just like, it just all ended for me because I didn't want to do it. You know, I didn't want to do it. And then I don't know, it's just like God just called me back, and then he brought to life. He just like, he gave me more than what I ever expected and wanted, you know, but I did want it. It's just that he gives you the desires of your heart, you know, and sometimes you don't even know that you desire something until you just see it come to fruition.
Yeah, I definitely feel like, you know, in that game, I have all kinds of, I definitely think I have way more ideas than can ever, you know, manifest themselves. You know, they're just like time constraints of living. But yeah, I definitely feel, I completely understand what you're saying. Now, does this play into, I saw, you know, just recently, I don't know how recent, it might be in the last month or two, but so you were acting and you were involved in the movie Princess Cut 2, correct? Mm-hmm. Now that dropped already, right? It's on like Amazon now, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So what was your involvement with that, and like how did you get involved with that, and what's that story?
So I have an agent, Treasure Coast Talent, Jean from Treasure Coast Talent, and she represents a lot of Christians in this film industry, and it's amazing how I met her also at ICFF in Orlando, the film festival, and so it was through her actually. I met the filmmakers at the International Christian Film Festival. And so she told me, well, Sheila Munger is the director's wife, who
Gotcha.
She was a producer as well. And she said that when she met me there, she wanted me in her film. But I did audition, And it was really interesting because the audition was like a little crazy. Like it was for a character that was a little risque. Like she was kind of coming on and you know, but I knew the filmmakers and I knew that they were very strong believers and they're just really good people. And I said, okay, well, it wasn't a horrible thing, but it was just like, you know, I was like the villain kind of. And so I just said, you know, I trust that God is going to, you know, that they're going to do the right thing with this role. So I submitted the audition and they ended up changing the script, you know? And so the character was a completely different name, a whole different thing, but I still was, you'll see. I don't want to.
Yeah. Don't give it. I definitely want to watch it.
It's not a huge part though. I'm just saying it's not the biggest, you know.
Yeah. Well, but you bring up an interesting thing that I've heard of before, especially having attended, you know, I've attended lots of film festivals, you know, from, I don't want to say secular, but just, you know, generic film festivals. And then you have the more faith, you know, family festivals. And I noticed that a lot of the faith and family actors or the people who are, you know, heavily involved in like the Christian film industry, they seem to have, I don't know if a struggle is the right word, but like a struggle between, all right, we got to play a bad guy, but how do we play a bad guy in a Christian film? For example, like how do we, like you said, you know, a risque person, how do you play a certain type of, you know, risque type person and still walk the line where it's, you know, a Christian film? So like, what are your thoughts on that whole, you know, line?
I mean, gosh, it's really hard. You know, so for example, in Open My Eyes, there was a scene where it's like a flashback to who I was before, right?
Okay.
Because in the movie, actually, it's a lot kind of like my life in a way. So he had me like just do this thing and like kind of just look into the camera, and it was like back in like my modeling days, and it's a little sultry, you know, but you have to pour. I was just like, oh my gosh, I can't do it. I don't know. It's so hard. It's like, you need to show reality, you know? And yet like, it's like, how is she tempting? How is she a temptress? Temptress? Is that the word?
I think so.
If we don't show it, I don't even know. There's a line, you know?
Yeah.
And you're going to cross it with someone. So,
yeah, I think that's one of the hardest things that I notice is especially in Christian film, they have a really difficult time doing bad guys. And it's because their bad guys can only go to the line that the Christian audience, you know, then will watch. Because if they're like darker than that somehow, and it doesn't even have to be like risque, just like the topic material, whatever it is, if the bad guy goes to a certain level of dark, then it's like, oh, well, now we've gone too far and we can't watch this movie anymore. But at the same time, it's like, how do you write a good bad guy if they're not, you know, or how do you write that kind of level of drama without showing like people are interesting?
But so, okay, so you're saying that it's because of the Christian audience, but as a filmmaker, right? You have your own convictions, like regardless of who's watching it, because our goal should not be just for a Christian audience. It should be for everybody, right? But obviously,
well, so I mean, and I can jump in there just from my own experience, and obviously, I don't have the experience for everybody, so I can only speak to that part. But I will say, like for example, I know that David White with PureFlix came out with the movie Beckman, and so when it came out, I went out to Redbox and I rented it, and it's kind of like if you took like John Wick and mixed it with some sort of, you know, Christian hero. That's kind of what that movie is. And I was surprised because when I rented the movie from Redbox and watched it, it had some violence in there that was way what I would think would be over the line. So I messaged one of the representatives over at PureFlix about it, and I was like, hey, you know, I watched this film and I was really kind of, not necessarily in a bad way, but I was just very surprised because I had always heard that they won't go to that level. And they're like, oh, well, for the PureFlix audience, we've edited it. Now, I haven't watched it on PureFlix, so I don't know if there actually is a difference or not a difference, but I know that was one of the considerations that they had was like, hey, if we're doing it for this audience, it needs to look a certain way. And if we're doing it for a Redbox audience, it can look a different way because it's a different audience. And for my own stuff, I can tell you, like, if I, you know, on the shows that I've gone darker, the Christian audience has evaporated. But if I keep it really, really clean, then I can get more Christian audience, but then I don't seem to get any of the other audiences. So it's a weird, like, I feel like there's a definite fine line between trying to make, both sides of that aisle like a show when it comes to violence or any kind of, negative, bad guy, drama, whatever you want to call it.
Right. Well, that's frustrating. It really is, because so I don't know if that movie's a Christian film, but David A.R. White is,
I mean, he's one of the main guys at PureFlix. Yeah.
Right. So, I mean, I'm guessing he's a believer. He said, right. I don't know. He says he is. So,
yeah, I mean, I would believe so. Yeah. I mean, he's talked about it like he is.
So when you make a movie as a believer, it should be like the standard is the same. Right. And so it's disappointing for me to hear that PureFlix has to, like, clean up a movie that's already done by a believer with his convictions just because they're so dull as a viewer.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and again, I mean, I want to be careful because I don't want to just step all over PureFlix's toes because again, I'm only going from my limited knowledge on the thing, so I can't speak on a broad level. It's not about them;
it's about the audience, basically. Right. And it's like, I mean, do we have to watch everything with our kids? Can't there be movies that we can just watch as adults?
Well, so, I mean, for me, it's like I spent quite a bit of time making a show that was not necessarily designed for children, and it won a lot of stuff. It won ICFF that year. But as far as, Christians getting behind that show, it has been very minimal. And I think it's because it's maybe more violent or has more topical material in it than...
You're talking about Saving Harper Ross?
Yeah. So our Breakers now is what it ultimately became. Breakers. But I can tell you, like, the Christians, man, they just evaporated into thin air with that show. And I heard from multiple people about, hey, you crossed the line. It was too much. And maybe it was for them, but and it might not have been for you, but as a whole, like I can guarantee you, like that's the response. And that's the big reason we actually tried to get it onto PureFlix, and the feedback that we got from them was that it had too much dark, topical material in the show, to go on their platform. And so, for us, it was like, well, it's like I'm the same filmmaker who's made other things that are, much more faith-based and Christian-based. I have a very faith-based children's puppet show. And at the same time, it's like, so they know who I am as a filmmaker, but I think that they're very aware that their audience will only get behind certain things. And so therefore they only go after certain things. And I just think, I mean, that's my experience. And I've many times, gone to, film festivals and Christian film festivals and talked about this exact thing. 'Cause I'm always like, I don't know if I'd ever make another Christian anything, precisely because I think it's so difficult to hit a target. I feel like the target is always moving, and you try to hit it, and some people just get lucky and they land it, and it's just like suddenly the entire Christian army, well, I say Christian army, the entire Christian film army shows up, and they're like, yeah, let's get behind this. And then everybody else, it's like, the target moved, I missed it, and now it passed, and so that's my experience anyway.
Okay, so I'm sorry, but like this... We should talk. I don't know if I should ask you this question now, but
sure.
But I know that they got bought over by Sony, right?
I know part of their company did. I don't know if the whole studio did. I know that their platform did. Mm-hmm.
So do they have different people working? Like, is that something that you maybe that they might accept now? I don't know. Anyway,
I don't know. I mean, one day maybe I can get one of the PureFlix people I know to come on the show and kind of talk in more detail about that. But just from the people that I've talked to before, I feel like they have a very keen understanding of their business model, and they stick straight to that because they know it works.
Well, because there's Vindication now, which is pretty. They have some stuff in there, and so I don't know. I've seen Breakers, and even after it was called Breakers, because you had it on before on your platform, and then you got it onto. Yep.
It's on Amazon and Tubi now, and some people love it and some people hate it. And, welcome to the film industry.
I really love it, and it was such a welcome change. And I can't even believe that I'm hearing this, but it is what it is.
Believe it or not, I didn't want to spend this show with you talking about this show. So let me get back to you, because as much as that's fun and I can talk about that all day, I had a handful of other things I wanted to ask you about. One of the things I know about you is that you do a lot of photography. And so that's an interesting thing as well, because coming from an actress, you do like wildlife photography, you've done like headshots, you've done like, how did that happen? Like where did you start doing all this stuff?
I just love, I guess because I have my photograph taken so much, and I know about angles and just the Kodak moment. Does anybody even know what that is anymore? I just see them all the time, and so anything that I see that is beautiful, I want to take a picture of it. It's like sometimes I don't enjoy the moment just because I'm enjoying the photographing the moment so that I can make it last forever, you know? And sometimes this is something crazy that I do that I almost have thought of doing something about it. Like I will see people sitting down, a couple, they're sitting down by a lake and they're watching the sunset. And it's like the most beautiful thing. I start taking pictures of them. And then I walk up to them and I'm like, hey, I just took some really nice pictures. I know it's weird, but like, do you want me to send them to you? And then I'll airdrop it or whatever. And like,
it's like the opposite of paparazzi.
Yeah, or I just, because it's so beautiful, and I just know that they would love to have that memory, and I know that moment was pretty awkward and weird, and they might not like it, but they'll save that for. I've caught a lot of things on there, like an engagement, or those are the things that I like to do. However, yes, as far as like trees or animals, and I do it with my phone. Actually, this is the most amazing little gadget,
Yeah.
And even headshots for people if they need it, for real estate or, acting, especially with my kids. It's like they're always growing. So I'll just, do their headshot.
Now, how old's your oldest now?
She is 14.
Okay. Yeah. I knew she'd been doing some acting. I just couldn't remember how old she was.
Yeah.
Well, we'll do our own thing with her sometime, see what she's up to.
Yeah, that would be great. She would love that.
Awesome. Well, so back to the photography. I didn't mean to get off there. How did you get involved, like with doing photography? Was it just something you decided you wanted to do, or did you just have a knack for it, or what happened?
I just have a knack for it. It was nothing but taking pictures and just, again, if I see a need, I want to meet it. And it's like somebody needs a friend of mine, her real estate picture is really outdated. And I'm like, can I take your headshot, please? Like, I would love to do that, and so I've thought about maybe making it a side gig where I can charge people. I don't even charge people when I do these things because I'm just so giving. It's crazy.
Well, but that's another thing that's so nice about you, because like I tend to be both both ways. Like I really want to help people out, and I think that that's a great thing. And then at the same time, it's really easy to be taken advantage of. But then on the other side of that, there's people that are like, I won't even lift a finger unless you're putting money underneath it. Right. So that is a nice quality to have.
I'm working on it because I know that I do need to have some sort of boundaries or draw a line somewhere, and so I'm working on that. I really am. Because I have to find balance, because I overexert myself. It's like, don't do anything for anyone unless they ask you, Yeah. It's like, I just start, if you put up a picture, let's say you put a picture up and it's beautiful, but the background is horrible, right? Or there's somebody in the background, like, and the picture's beautiful. So I will take the picture, I will remove the background, I'll replace the background, I'll edit, and then I'll just hand you a picture that is beautiful so that you can have without the guy in the background. Nobody asked me to do that. It's like, and I believe it's a gift and I like to do it for people, but sometimes I'm just like, Jeannie, stop. I have a million things to do,
Yeah. Well, so, I mean, speaking of a million things to do, you do acting, obviously, you do music, you do photography, and you've done modeling in your past. What is your favorite? Like, where's your passion lying right now? Like, what's the thing that you would choose above all the others?
Well, I mean, my family, which is what I choose. If they weren't around, oh goodness, I don't.
Do you get more enjoyment from the acting side, or like? I mean, I don't know any of the
acting. Yes, acting for the most part is the most. And the reason why I'm kind of torn is because I really do love all aspects of filming, right?
Mm-hmm.
But yes, the film industry and the entertainment industry is definitely where I'm called to. Like, I don't see myself. I don't like to lock myself down doing anything else because I want to always remain open for that.
Yeah.
However, I've always oh geez, this is a whole different thing. But like therapy and being a therapist is something that's always been in my heart. And that's something I've never really pursued. And that's something that I considered, maybe, should I go to school, go back to school and
You're talking about like physical therapy, or are you talking about like the
like
mental therapy type stuff?
relational
Gotcha.
psychology, you know? So that's just another thing that I entertained as possibly going back to school for. But that, gosh, again, it's tough because I do have my family and I want to be around for them. And so as it is, you know, for example, I just recently got a really good audition for a lead for a film, and it, you know, films in January, and it's for a good network. But I saw no evidence of it being a film with like a good message, or, you know, maybe even Christian. Like, I don't have to do a Christian film, but I really wanted to have purpose. And then, so if I'm going to be gone for 3 weeks, is it worth it for me at this time, at this stage where I'm at, you know, leaving my family for 3 whole weeks for something that is what is for a paycheck, or it's for my fame or for my own glory, or to have fun? I really have to weigh those things out right now, you know? And so I actually responded like, you know, I maybe a smaller role would be, you know, better for me at this point, you know? But I just declined that one because I didn't want to tie myself up for that.
Yeah, well, I think that takes a tremendous amount of like courage, and I would totally applaud you, because I've heard, you know, lots of stories from people and connections I have all throughout LA, and some of them, you know, they just take any gig that can come along because, you know, they're paying bills and there's all these things, and they just take, you know, whatever. And I definitely think it takes a level of maturity and a level of control to, you know, place other things higher, you know, than a paycheck, or higher than, you know, just set your levels to say, no, look, you know, for me, it's got to be here, or else I just say no. And yeah, so I'd applaud you for that. Like, that's a courageous thing to do, just all across the board. Well, that's excellent, and actually leads me into a perfect segue for this. So thank you for leading it up there. But as an actress, I was going to say, what are like some of the top lessons that you've learned that you would, you know, if I was a new actor coming along and it was like, hey, I'm coming in, you know, what are some things that you would tell me is like, hey, I learned this the hard way, or I learned this lesson, you need to know this. What are some things that stick out to you? Like, man, this is valuable.
Well, I mean, well, that's one of them. And hard lesson is knowing what you will do and what you won't do, what your standards are, and communicate them clearly beforehand, you know, read the script. Even if the script is in line with whatever you think, you know, they can always change it and they can always add things. So you have to say up front, like, hey, I'm not going to kiss someone, or hey, I'm not going to be naked, or hey, because you don't want to be on set and be put in a position where, you know, where it might weaken you, you know, because it's hard to, especially if you're an agreeable person or a people pleaser, you might have a harder time sticking to your guns, you know. And so, yeah, that's one of the biggest things.
So just establish what, you know, where your in and out point is, where you're what you're comfortable with and what you're not, and then stick to your guns there.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's cool because I worked on a film called Beautiful One. The director had it's not out yet. I think it might be released this year. And so he brought me on to ask me to, as a consultant, right? He wanted to know, because I was in the modeling industry, you know, what I thought would be something that would cause a photographer to not be a photographer anymore. And I gave him some examples of things that happened to me. And so, you know, in the film and the modeling, it was kind of, you know, that applies to either one, about having standards. And I had a really unfortunate thing happen to me at age 16, and he actually used it in the film, and the photographer talks about that, and it's my story, but it's as it was him. And man, when I heard that come out of his mouth and what he said then about how he felt about what he did to that girl, it was like, it just made it healed me in a way. It was like God used a bad experience for a good purpose for this film, and I was able to see that in a movie. It's pretty incredible. I don't want to say anything about that either.
Well, when the time comes,
beautiful one.
Yeah, well, let's definitely check that out. So one of the things I've noticed about your Facebook feed and I think your website even is that you have a couple of different places on there where you show your audition reels of various auditions that you've done, and I thought that was really interesting because you've auditioned for an interesting range of roles for all these different films. And I know from experience that that's one of the things that comes up a lot at, festival conferences and things like that. It's like how to audition, how to, go about. So walk me through your process of how you approach an audition, how you record an audition, just that whole thing. Cause I'm sure there's a lot of people that would like to know kind of what you do.
Oh goodness, that's so hard for me because like I said, I'm so busy. Like to find time, it's like, oh, when I get an audition, the bigger it is, the more it's like it causes this like, oh, when am I going to do this? So I like to print. I print it out, and I got some studio lights, and I got a pop up backdrop, or I have a plain wall. It's good to, read the audition over a few times and just like, I don't know, just.
Do you do usually like one take, or how many times do you have to do a take before you feel like, man, okay, that's the one I'm going to send in?
I do a lot of, I do as many as I feel like I need to do. So I do a few. I might do, depending on how big it is. I mean, 3 is like an average, right?
Okay.
So that's not a whole lot, but you kind of know when and I kind of watch them over. I tape it with my phone. I have my phone on a tripod. I look at it. I have it filming on as selfie mode, so I can see, because sometimes I do it by myself. It's really hard when you don't have somebody there with you. But now I'm so used to it that I don't want because I know what I want,
Yeah.
And I also discovered that on selfie mode, like because sometimes you don't want to look, your eye line can be too far. And so when you're looking at yourself, you're not looking at the lens, and it's kind of cool because you can see more or less how you're doing it, while you're doing it, which is kind of good trick for an audition, but you have to be ready when you're on set that you're not talking to yourself, you're not looking at yourself, you're actually talking to a person, and like that kind of changes things. So you really have to get used to, practicing with a person if, when you do get the part, just to like get ready for that change. What more are you looking for more as far
I just
as
know
auditions?
Auditioning for me is one of the most difficult elements, I think, to do. And it doesn't really matter even what it is almost. It's because you're trying to hit a target that, again, you can't see, because, again, that whoever's putting this film out is going to have an idea of kind of what they want, the mannerisms, the look, the feel, the attitude. Like they already have it in their head, and all you're getting is this this sheet that just has the sides on there, and you just have to go for whatever you just comes to brain, and then say, all right, well, I guess this is what I'm going to do. And that's always, on the one hand, it's very intimidating. And on the other hand, I heard Samuel L. Jackson talk about doing auditions once, and he's like, look, this is just part of my job. I'm going to show up, I'm going to audition, and I'm going to leave, and then I'm not going to think about it again. And I thought that's an interesting way to look at it. But I feel like that's the hardest thing for especially new actors to deal with, is like how to look at a side, and how to make a decision, how to make a choice on how you're going to go about it, and then just go for it with that in mind. So I was just curious how you went about it.
So, you're a director, right? And so you've watched the audition tapes, and so then when there's no context, you do have to make a decision. And sometimes, everybody does the same thing. I'm sure you've seen that people, for the most part, they'll just do it the same way or say the same thing. So you can make a choice. Like you can, it's like, so make a choice on whether this person, the dialogue could be a little bit of an argument, but like, is it a really bad argument, or is it like a sarcastic argument, or is it a comedic argument, you know? And that's the choice you're going to make. And I am me, right? And so it's nice to bring your essence into it. It's like there's nobody else that's going to bring that one in, you know? So that's what's going to stand out. And so to me though, it's like, it's so much more about the in between the dialogue than the dialogue itself, because the dialogue itself is already there. It's like, what do you do with it? How do you react? How do you listen? How do you it's like people think before they speak, you know, and so those are the things that you kind of have to remember and show, and just not like spit out words, you know?
Yeah. One of the things that I do pretty much every time I do any auditions, if we're filming something, is that I always will specify, or even if it's right in front of me, if they come in and they do a live audition, I will say, all right, give me the first take, and I don't give them anything, which I'm sure is terrifying as an actor to have nothing. But I don't give them anything because I want to see what they do. And then immediately after that, I'm going to give them a direction that may have nothing to do with the film, but I will give them something that's different and say, I want you to do this. And the whole purpose of it is I want to see, can they actually do something different? Or are they so ingrained in what they've got that they're going to just do it? And oftentimes, many people that I've not given roles to is because they weren't able to make a change. They weren't like, it's like watching the same audition again. And that's when I know, like, whatever I'm getting now, like once I get it, that's my only option, and I'm not going to want that. So a lot of times for me, it's like, can you change? If I give you something and you come, in with energy level 5, can you give me energy level 10? Or can you give me, like, if it's sarcastic version, can you give me a comedic version? What can you do? And so, just on the other side of the reel, like, that's something that I'm looking for, because usually it's like, here's an actor that I think is good and can easily do this part. And so that's no longer the question. They match it, they fit it, they could do it. But what I want to know is, can you actually, act? Can you do something differently? So if we're on set and I want to try something different, can we do it? And so it gives me more options as a director. So that's kind of one of the ways I look at it, is like, I want to see a couple different takes, and I want them to actually be different. Like, don't give me the same thing twice, or else, that's just, it's wasting everybody's time.
Right. Yeah, I hear you on that. And it's sometimes it can be tricky, because it's like you got to stop and just wash everything out, and really just get present, and just allow yourself to like let go and just embrace, and like just get out of your head and just let it out.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome. Well, look, so we've already been on here for a while, but I want to ask you one last question before we end this thing. And I'm just curious, because you've acted in quite a few different things with quite a few different roles. And so you seem to have just a wide range between modeling and acting and just the things that you've done. I'm curious, if you had to get a dream role, like the thing that you would aspire to be in, the type of movie that you would inspire to be in, what would that be? And then what about it is attracting you?
Oh my gosh, I am not ready for this question.
That's my job, is to think of the harder questions.
Dream. I don't, what would be my dream role? I don't know. I really don't know. Just because, honestly, like, what I've wanted to do more than anything, and I still haven't done it, is like just a comedy. And a comedy won't land me any Oscars or any kind of, best, could have a best actress nomination.
Never know.
Yeah, you never know. But like, just to really have my own essence in that, and just like really, because I find I don't know, it's like sometimes I want to act, but I want to be me, and I want to be me in a movie. So and it's possible when it's comedy or something like that, because it's just, that's what I I have and what I've always really wanted.
Is it because you think that might be easier for you, or is it because that's just something that appeals to you most?
No, because it appeals. Like, okay, humor is humor to me is I don't know, it's just so, it's such a gift, and to be able to share that is something that I have always wanted, you know? So I don't know, one day I know it'll happen, but
so we just need to make sure you land in some sort of major comedic show. Yeah.
Like total, just where it's like, yeah.
Is there any particular, like, you know, like what kind of sitcoms? Like, give me a feel for what kind of comedy you're talking about.
Sitcom. Oh my gosh. Can we talk? Okay. So anyway, it doesn't have to be a sitcom. Actually, I was thinking more of a film.
Oh, sure. I just was curious, like what kind of, like when you say comedy, there's still a range there of like what kind of comedy you're talking about. So I'm just curious as like what kind of feeling that would be. Are we talking like The Office? Are we talking about rom-coms? Are we talking about like, you know, a Friends or Frasier? Are we talking about something slapstick? I mean, what is the kind of comedy that like you really like?
I mean, I am sarcastic, which is a good and a bad thing sometimes. So, there's that sarcasm. There's, you know, a little goofy because I could be goofy. So that, you know, it's, I don't know. I'm sorry.
Oh, man, see, that's funny already.
But here's the deal. This is a funny thing. I am currently working in a sitcom, a Christian sitcom. We filmed 8 episodes that, you know, we'll see what happens with that. And it's called What's a Girl to Do? Okay. And with Janet Porter. My role is the opposite of what I am describing to you right now. She is got something up her butt. She is completely just stoic and just boring as heck as a character. She's, you know, I add the, you know, the little bit of the, you know, the comedic timing and the little bit of sarcasm, but it's just like, oh my gosh, if there's a person, I think of the people that I don't like, and that's who I have to be for this character. And I'm like, the irony that I am watching these people act like clowns, and I have to sit here and just like,
yeah. What I find, like, the better the straight man, the better the humor ultimately is. So yeah. they might have the funny lines, but if you don't have the right straight man across at any given time, it may not be as good.
Right. Yeah. So, I mean, anyway, that's the irony of it. But anyway.
Well, awesome. Well, so this has been JEANNIE GARCIA, and you're based out of Florida. And so just so everybody knows, if you need a great actress, she's right there, right in the middle of everything. So JEANNIE, thank you so much for being on the show and just hanging out with me a little bit and talking about this stuff. We'll definitely have you again at some point, and I'll check out these movies as they come out. And I'll make sure that we put all this stuff in the show notes so that we can connect with you and follow what you're doing and all that kind of stuff. Sound good? Awesome.
Yeah, of course.
All right. Well, let me do my little outro here just to read this, and then we'll be done. But anything else you want to say before we end this thing?
No, I'm just honored to be here with you. I really love you and your wife and your beautiful family, and so just thank you so much for finding me interesting enough to have me on here.
Oh, absolutely. Like I said, we were attracted to you from day one, just because I really like bringing joy to people. I don't know how else to really explain that. It's just, you know, there's sometimes you can talk to somebody and you can leave and you can feel good, you know, right. and I think that there's other people that you can talk to and you can leave feeling bad, and it doesn't even matter what you talk, you just leave with a darker view of the world. And so it's like, if I could do anything, I feel like I would love to just be able to have conversations with people that like this, that people can listen to, and it will just make you feel maybe a little lighter or brighter, or maybe you learn something, and it just ends up being a positive thing. Like, you can add into the world in a positive way. And so, you know, when I meet people like you, I'm like, this is a person that you can't be around without feeling more positive at the end. And that's the kind of person I want to talk to. So,
and that's the kind of movie I want to be in.
Well, there you go. Problem solved. Well, we'll do a movie together or something awesome.
That would be great.
Awesome. All right. Well, I'm going to wrap this thing up. Let's see here. This has been the Chason Laing podcast. You will find all the relevant links from today's show in the show notes, including all of Jeannie's awesome information. So please go follow her and check out her stuff. If you enjoyed our show, please hit the subscribe button, click the notification bell to get access to our shows as soon as they drop. And that is all for this episode, folks. So go get after it.
Go get it.